can't stop. I got motion. I'm moving. I'm going. Can't lose focus. I got motion. I'm moving. I'm going.
Red Corner Boxing. We're in the game.
Yes, welcome, fight fans, ladies and gentlemen, to Red Corner Boxing's X Prediction League time. This program is sponsored by Easy Storage and Boxing Fight Zone. Right, well, it was a great week last week, fight week 3. We'll put the tables up right now, and is top of the pile, 130 points last week, and he's got a total of 395. And here's where it gets interesting. Spit Bucket Podcast and Jab at Boxing have found themselves in joint second place. 129 points, 132 respectively. What a week for Sweet Pugilism, 144 points. He brings himself into the fold, 368 points. Max Calandrillo still hanging in there, 360. Lee Mack from the Northwest, 330. And Graham Walker, he had a bit of a stinker last week, but I'm sure he'll be back coming on strong, 307. Well, we're going to go straight to the first fight on this card, fight week 4 of season 3. And it's going to be Leo Atang versus Dan Garber. 4-0-0 Atang versus 11-6-0 Garber. It's a bit of a step up for Atang. So much so that they put a rematch clause on this fight should he lose. Now, let's go straight to the first predictor. Top of the table says knockout round 4 for Atang. We got Spit Bucket Podcast, who says knockout round 3 for Atang. Jab at Boxing, hanging in there, doing very well. Knockout round 5, says the Welshman for Atang. Sweet Pugilism, one of my favourites to go up. Knockout round 3 for Atang. Max Calandrillo sees it even earlier in knockout round 2. But Lee Mack and both Graham Walker both say knockout round 6 for Leo Atang, even though it is a step up. Right, now moving on, and there's the return of Molly McCann versus Peter Dudek, the Hungary super bantamweight affair over 6 rounds. 2-0-0 McCann up against 7-8-0 Dudek. Let's go straight to Waz. Waz says unanimous decision for Molly. Spit Bucket says knockout round 2 for Molly McCann. Jab at Boxing says unanimous decision, as does Sweet Pugilism, as does Max Calandrillo, and both and Lee Mack as well, all say unanimous decision. But Graham Walker says knockout round 7 for Molly. Even though it's a 6-round affair, we'll make it knockout round 6 for him. Right, moving on. We got Tiamir Ayton versus Ramos. I'm not going to go all the way over there. You can see the stats up there. Tiamir Ayton is a bit of a knockout merchant. So, knockout round 5 for Tiamir Ayton, says was. Spit Bucket says unanimous decision for Ayton. Jab at Boxing says knockout round 4. Sweet Pugilism, Max Calandrillo and Lee Mack says unanimous decision for Ayton. And Graham Walker's gone for knockout round 5 for the young Brit. Moving on. And we got Sandy Ryan versus Carla Ramos Zamora for the WBC World Super Lightweight vacant title. Over 10 rounds. And it's 8-3-1 Ryan versus 12-10-2 Zamora from Mexico. Now, if we go to Waz, he says unanimous decision for Ryan. And I can tell you, all the way through, Spit Bucket, to Jab It, to Sweet, to Max Calandrillo, to Lee Mack and Graham Walker, all said unanimous decision for Sandy Ryan. Incredible stuff. Moving on the undercard, Ishmael Davis versus Bilal Fawaz for the British Super Welter and the Commonwealth Super Welterweight titles. Now, we have 15-3-0 Davis against 10-1-1 Fawaz. You can see the age difference. They got to move him on, Fawaz. He has got something to prove now, and against Ishmael Davis, who's only lost to some of the best out there. Waz says unanimous decision, Davis, as does Spit Bucket. Jab at Boxing says knockout round 9 for Ishmael Davis. Sweet Pugilism and Max Calandrillo says unanimous decision for Davis. A split decision, says Lee Mack for Davis. And a majority decision for Davis, says Graham Walker. Fawaz could prove to be a very difficult and awkward customer to get past. Right, top of the shop, headliner, Lee Wood, Josh Warrington. Rematch. 28-4-0 Wood, 32-4-1 Warrington. If we go to was straight in, knockout, round 10, Josh Warrington, he sees that get back. He sees it on the week round. Spit Bucket Podcast sees the other way around. He says knockout, round 8 for Lee Wood, same as the last time, just a round difference. Jab Boxing says unanimous decision for Warrington. Sweet Pugilism, knockout, round 11 for Lee Wood. Incredible stuff. Majority decision, says Max Calandrillo for the United States. And Lee Mack says knockout round 7 for Lee Wood. Exactly the same as fight 1. And Graham Walker says knockout round 8 for Lee Wood. Well, it's going to be a great fight. I can't wait for that one. Let's move to America. And this is on the undercard. Oh, the Gary Antoine Russell and Andy Hirioka fight. It's Joshua Edwards versus Brandon Colantino. It's USA versus Canada. 25 and 29 respectively. 5-0-0 Edwards. Bit of a knockout merchant. 7-1-0 Colantonio. Still a good record. Still a good step up for Edwards. But look, says knockout round 4 for Edwards. Same as said Spit Bucket Podcast round 4. Jab Boxing says knockout round 5, same as the Sweet Pugilism knockout round 5. Max Calandrillo says no more than 2 rounds for Joshua Edwards, knockout round 2. But when we get back to Britain, Lee Mack says majority decision for Edwards and unanimous decision for Graham Walker. Moving on, and it's the return of young Amari Jones. And he's up against Luis Arias, fellow American, 15-0-0, Amari Jones, and a 10-round middleweight affair, fighting Luis Arias, 22-6-1, but he's lost his last 2. War says he doesn't see a knockout. He says unanimous decision for Amari Jones. So does Spit Bucket. So does Jabit. And indeed, so does Sweet Pugilism. All unanimous decision for Amari Jones. Max Calandrillo brings it back to earth with a bang with a knockout in round 9 for the youngster. Jones. Knockout round 4, says Lee Mack for Amari Jones. And Graham Walker's gone for a majority decision. Could end up being a close fight in his eyes. Moving on. And we've got Bektemir Mulikuziev versus Sena Agbeko. Bully boy Makuziev, 16-1-0, the southpaw, up against the orthodox in Agbeko, who's 29-4-0, but he's lost 2 out of his last 3. Says a knockout round 5 for Bully boy. Knockout round 6 says Spit Bucket Podcast for Melikuziev as well, as does Jabby Boxing. Knockout round 6, we got a unanimous decision for Sweet Pugilism. For Melikuziev. We got a knockout round 3 for Melikuziev, says Max Calandrillo. Knockout round 5 for Lee Mack, Melikuziev, and majority decision for Graham Walker. Moving on to Frank Martin versus Nahir Albright, super lightweight affair over 10 rounds. Southpaw versus Orthodox. Frank Martin, 19-1-0, up against 17-2-0. Nahir Albright. This is a great fight, but says unanimous decision for Frank Martin, as does Spit Bucket Podcast. These two have been close in their last 4 or 5 predictions. Knockout round 8 for Jabba Boxing for Frank Martin. We got a unanimous decision for Sweet Pugilism. We got a split decision for Frank Martin, says Max Calandrillo. A knockout in round 6, says Lee Mack for Nahir Albright. Man, that's a great shout if it comes in. Knockout round 6 for Frank Martin, says Graham Walker. As we move to the co-main event, Hitchens versus Duarte. This is going to be a great fight. Unbeaten Hitchens, 20-0 versus 32-1 Gerardo Duarte for the IBF Super Lightweight title. Unanimous decision, says Split decision, says, what's his name again? Was and Split Bucket. We have, oh my goodness, unanimous decision, says Jabbit. Unanimous decision, says Sweet Pugilism. Unanimous decision, says Max Calandrillo, as does Lee Mack, and as does Graham Walker, all for Richardson Hitchens. Incredible. Not one person fancies Oscar Duarte. Could be close. Moving on. We got Barrios versus Garcia. Mario Barrios, the champion, versus Ryan Garcia, the pretender. 29-2-2. Barrios 24-2-0. Garcia. Knockout round 7, says was for Ryan Garcia. Knockout round 8, says Spit Bucket Podcast for Nahir Albright. For Mario Barrios, the previous fight. Split decision, says Jabby Boxing for Ryan Garcia. Knockout round 7 for Sweet Pugilism, Ryan Garcia. Max Calandrillo, knockout round 8 for Ryan Garcia. Lee Mack, knockout round 6 for Ryan Garcia. And split decision for Barrios, says Graham Walker. Let's go to the main event. And it's Andy Hirioka versus Gary Antoine Russell. 18-1-0 Russell's up against 24-0 Hirioka. Although Hirioka has got 2 days in the USA. He flies out tomorrow. Will he be jet lagged Saturday night? I think he will be. Says knockout round 6 for Gary Antoine Russell. Knockout round 8, says Spit Bucket Podcast for Gary. Knockout round 7 for Jamming Boxing for Gary. Unanimous decision for Sweet Pugilism, says Gary, for Gary. Knockout round 11 for Max Calandrillo for Gary. Knockout round 8 from Lee Mack. And majority decision for Graham Walker. All for Gary Antoine Russell. Moving on to the final card. And it's the return of Caressa Shields versus Franchon Cruz de Zon. And this is for all the belts. The Caressa Shield 17-0-0 against 10-2-0 Franchon Cruz de Zon. They did meet in their debuts. A lot has happened since then. Has Franchon Cruz de Zon improved enough to reverse that decision? Says no. Unanimous decision for Shields. And I can tell you right now, to make it shorter, all across the board, from Jabbit Boxing all the way to Graham Walker, they've all said unanimous decision for Caressa Shields. Incredible stuff. The last fight in fight week 4 is Che Keneally versus Danielle Perkins. Light heavyweight affair over 10 rounds. The unbeaten Australian Keneally, 5-0-0, against 5-1-0 Danielle Perkins, 43 years of age. Last time out against Caressa Shields, she lost that fight. So, will the Australian be better than Perkins? Well, yes, says was. Unanimous decision, Keneally. Spit Bucket Podcast says no. Perkins will get it by unanimous decision. Then we go to Jabbit Boxing, who says unanimous decision for the Australian, Keneally. But then again, Sweet Pugilism says no. Perkins will get it. Unanimous decision. But the last 2 guys, Max Calandrillo and Lee Mack, both go unanimous decision for Keneally. And Graham Walker finishes it off with majority decision for Keneally. That is fight week 4 for season 3 for the X League. And there's lots of kudos points for these guys. They want to be known as the X League predictor champion. So good luck to all them. We'll be back next week for fight week 5. We wish all the guys here the very best of order here on Red Corner Boxing. We are sponsored by EasyStores.com and Boxing Fight Zone, if you didn't already know. If you're brand new to watching us, please give us a like, subscribe, and we want to grow the channel to keep giving you excellent content, including this prediction league. And remember, if you want to join in for season 4, which will be in 11 weeks' time, you're more than welcome. It's free to enter. Just contact me or Jams on X or leave a comment in the chat. But until then, We'll see you soon. I'll be back next week. Bye-bye for now.
I'm moving.